Hello and welcome, or welcome back to our 8th Streaming Media Connect. We've got a live one coming up, a real live one, like in person, coming up in Huntington Beach, Streaming Media West in November. The website is live, registration is live, and the program is live at the link that Steve, our producer, will be popping into the chat momentarily. Check it out. We hope to see you in person, but we also love seeing you here virtually at our Streaming Media Connect events. I'm Eric Schumacher Rasmussen, the conference chair for all of Streaming Media's events, and I'm also the CMO of Ideas. Before we jump into our discussion today, just a couple of housekeeping notes. Just for being here, you're entered into a random drawing for an Amazon gift card, and we'll announce the winner at the end of the session. The one caveat is you must be present to win. So we'll be checking that panelist list or that attendee list at about 4:59 Eastern to see who's still here. If you have questions for our panel, please put them in the Q&A tab rather than in the chat. It's just easier for our moderator and I to keep track of them there than if they go into the chat. Finally, subtitles are turned on. So if you see the subtitles scrolling across the bottom of your screen and you don't want to see them or don't need to see them, you can go down to the bottom of your Zoom window, click on Live Transcript, and select Disable Transcript. All of the Streaming Media Connect sessions will be available on demand starting Monday at our YouTube channel. And again, Steve will pop the link to the YouTube channel in the chat so you can find it easily. I'd like to thank our diamond sponsor, Media Silo, for sponsoring all 3 days of Streaming Media Connect. And we have a brief video message from them now. And I would like to thank the sponsor of this panel, Quilt, and Quilt's Gautier will be joining us in this discussion when Nadine Krefetz, Streaming Media Contributing Editor and Moderator About Town, Nadine, join us please, leads us in a discussion about delivering live video at scale. Nadine, welcome back. You were here yesterday twice.
Thank you. Yes, I just popped in today again to, stir things up a bit.
Well, go for it. I'll let you take over from here.
Excellent. How about everybody turn the camera on, and that way we can start. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through and have people talk about what their architecture is. So these guys are from they all are from different environments and different, I'm not even going to say business models, but a lot of different technology has gone into some of their systems. So, and in fact, Imran, I'm going to start with you first because you're I'm going to call you ATSC 3 guy.
Okay.
You want to give us a little bit of an introduction as to what your company is doing?
Sure, absolutely. So Evoca TV is a live subscription TV service that we're over the air in 7 markets and growing. We're a startup, we're real small, we just started a few years ago. But our approach to video is that broadcast is great for high concurrency events and for video that everyone wants to see at the same time, particularly news, sporting events, etc. And OTT streaming is great for things that are more asynchronous. And so we've got a hybrid approach to delivering video where we deliver our pay TV service both over the internet and over the air, over traditional TV broadcast. We use ATSC 3.0, and we can get into the details, to really make that efficient and high quality video broadcast. This isn't your grandfather's rabbit ears TV.
Okay, very cool. We'll get into that further in a little bit. And now Jonas is from Global, and he's going to talk a little bit about what they've been developing. Jonas, why don't you just give us a little quick intro into it, and then we'll go into detail a little bit.
Yeah, basically, Global is the largest Latin American media company that brings together free-to-air and pay-TV channels in addition to digital products and services. Our linear channel speaks to more than 100 million people every day. So with 99% of coverage inside national territory, thanks to a wide network of affiliates that covers to the entire country. So we can cover local and a region at the same time. And we produce a lot of content of sport, news, and entertainment. So basically, we will have a challenge here with a country that has continental territory, and we need to distribute video with the best cost-effective and the best video experience ever.
Okay. And one of the interesting things that, we're going to talk about in a bit is that Globo is, as a broadcaster and a digital provider, their footprint is large, and Brazil is a large country with a large population. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Let me go from one large company to another large company, PC. Give us a little bit of a rundown as to what you are doing at Disney Streaming.
Yeah, thanks, Nadine. Excuse me. So yeah, my name is PC. I actually work as an architect in the video delivery side of the things. I'm part of the organization called Media Distribution. And this organization in Disney Streaming is responsible for video delivery for your common names such as Hulu, Disney Plus, ESPN, and Star Plus. And so we are responsible for delivering all these media bytes as they are written to storage. This could be a live audio VOD storage, and then delivered all the way to the players, going through lots of different stacks, some owned by us and some owned by commercials as well too. And as a quick note on the scale itself, while we certainly do VOD content and live content, but we also do Super Bowl, which sees a lot of eyeballs. From a scale point of view, there's also, just to maybe brag about it, we made 220 million plus subscribers. So there are many different facets of challenges that we have to face, and I'm happy to actually kind of participate and talk more about that.
Okay, all right, very good. Gautier, give us a little bit of insight into what Quilts is and what you spend your time talking about.
Sure. So Quilts is basically leading the charge in open caching globally today. What we're trying to do is we're trying to think about new ways to deliver content that go beyond the edge. Basically, we work by embedding architecture inside ISPs and basically connect all those architecture together, leveraging the open caching protocol. What we're basically trying to do is we're trying to build an internet that scale. We're trying to remove all the typical roadblock that you have with content delivery today that all of us are going to talk about for the next hour. And try to make that a little bit more efficient. So I look forward to give you more details as we go.
Okay. All right. Now, all right. So one of the things you all have to deal with is surge, or what happens when you just are dealing with a huge amount of traffic. In fact, Jonas, why don't you kind of kick us off and just talk about, because you've got a couple of interesting things you wanted to mention about how your viewers or when they're online.
Yep. Now I'm going to share my screen. Everyone is seeing.
So you built your own CDN.
Yep.
Wow.
So basically, we have here the continental country, and we needed to deliver video to all of people of Brazil. And since we were global.com, we had just two main pops at Rio and São Paulo. That's tier 0. One of them is IXP, and so at 2019 we had just 2 pops, and we began our expansion journey. The next layer is tier 1, that is located at global regionals and affiliates that support big traffic in South and Northeast. And the next layer is tier 2, located at some global affiliates that made sense to its region traffic, and also inside open CDNs. That is an initiative supported by CGIBR, which is responsible for the coordination of all the internet services in Brazil. So far for tier 1 and 2, what we have, just a bunch of servers connected to a pair of switches that are open for peering with ISPs and also Quilt. We also have peering in each location with every central IXP distributed along Brazil. So the capillarity of connectivity is awesome. In total, we have achieving almost 12 terabits per second of connectivity.
Can you say it again? Because I
So
didn't hear you. How much?
12
12, okay.
terabits per second.
Okay, impressive.
3 years ago, we had just 3. So in three years, we did it 4 times.
Okay.
And for 20 pops, we had in the end of 2020, we had 20 pops, 10 times what we had in 2019. So for 2021 and the following years, we're expanding in large, medium, and small ISPs over Brazil. That's tier 3, distributing the content in the last mile. So we are going to have more than 150 pops to the end of this year. This is a champion approach for us because the KPIs and results are speaking themselves. For a fast deploy, mainly in tier 3, we design and develop a product with partners that we call Global Cache Appliance. They offer a high performance for our workloads, and it's a good win-win relationship with ISPs.
Let me ask you one question. So is it very common for a media company to go and create their own CDN?
It depends of the traffic. If the traffic, the cost of the traffic, it's small.
Right.
You do with partners. If the cost of the traffic is big enough, you do it in your own because it's going to be more efficient.
But also, I mean, because you're also a broadcaster, you had a lot of physical locations, didn't you?
Yeah, that's a key strategy for us because we have our buildings, we have a wide network of affiliates, but we do know that if we keep our own CDN alone, we're going to have some trouble. So that's why for big events like World Cup, Olympic Games, and mainly Big Brother Brazil that we produce every year, we still have some thresholds that triggers to route new requests to some partner, so we can scale our distribution with another CDN provider, avoiding an outage impact in our business. So for national multi-CDN strategy, we serve all the content during the most part of time with our own CDN, and just for major big events, we manage traffic to other CDNs, so we can provide the best experience possible to our users.
Okay, so the cost benefit really was what was driving you guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Almost 6 or 7 times.
Okay, all right. Now I don't want to cut you off. Is there more you want to talk about, or can I jump to a totally different architecture here?
Yeah. You can jump.
Okay, all right. And Imran, you're thinking totally different architecture. That must describe you. So talk to us a little bit in more detail about what you're doing, because it's pretty interesting and it's also very different.
Yeah, and I guess the best way to think about it is, you know, if we're trying to broadcast the Super Bowl, one way to do it is what PC and Jonas and others have been looking at is really scaling out on your CDN delivery, really making sure that you can deliver that unicast stream to every single device that wants it, right? At any time, anywhere. What we're looking at is trying to figure out, well, if everyone in a particular area, neighborhood, DMA, what have you, is watching pretty much the exact same content at the exact same time, it makes more sense from our point of view to use a broadcast model where you're sending the same bits to the same set of households, but you're sending it once over the air and using a radio receiver, RF receiver to receive those bits and display them to the user. Now, this is not anything new. TV broadcast has existed for decades. But the cool thing about the new standard that we're using, ATSC 3.0, the Advanced Television Standards Committee or what have you, is that we can have the same production pipeline. We can have the same backend for video where, you know, our video ingest, encode, encrypt, and distribution is all the exact same pipeline that we'd use to distribute over the internet, but we would just take that top rendition and broadcast that over the air. And the benefit there is that we don't have to have duplicate video pipelines for internet delivery and broadcast. We have one pipeline and it goes both places.
You guys do a lot of 4K delivery, don't you?
We do 4K delivery. That's true. We've got a 4K channel over the air that basically uses content from a channel called Insight, which is a 24/7 4K channel. The biggest problem with 4K right now is the lack of content produced in 4K. But one of the benefits that we can offer is that we can deliver 4K to anyone in a DMA, regardless of whether they've got high bandwidth to their home or not.
Okay. All right. Do you guys have questions for him, or should I skip around to somebody else?
I mean, I can ask a quick question to Imran. I think it's a very interesting strategy, clever, I should say, wherein you can go from unicast to this broadcast model. I think on the player side, you have some challenges. So I'm kind of curious if you can speak to this. How much of the content that is being played by the player is OTA versus OTT? Yeah, I don't know if that you can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have an ability to switch back and forth. So we have a set-top box, our Evoca set-top box. You can see it right here. And it's got an antenna input, and it's got Ethernet and Wi-Fi. And so that set-top box can receive content over the air and over the top. And it can we can vary the content. So we can actually take a stream that's being delivered over the air, move it to the internet, move it back to over the air. And because we're aligning on the same segment boundaries, the user doesn't know the difference and can't tell the difference. In terms of what we actually deliver, you know, it depends market to market on the bandwidth that we allocate. In some markets, we have 6 megahertz stations. We can get effectively 80 megabits, right, to everybody's household. And with HEVC, that, you know, an HD channel, we can encode at 3 or 4 megabit and have really good 1080p quality. And so that, you know, you can do the math there. With 4K, we're probably sitting around 12 to 15 megabit, depending on how we want to encode it and the type of content. And so we tend to focus on content that is higher value and higher bandwidth. So we offload the most internet access to broadcast, right? We want what people want to watch most, and what takes the most amount of bits. That's what we're going to put over the air, and we're going to leave the rest of the stuff over the top.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question or just raises more.
I mean, of course I have, but we will end up talking just the two of us. So
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll expand it a little bit. We can get back to him in a few minutes. In fact, PC, since you're chatting, why don't we have you talk more about what you're involved with? Because I think you have some unique controls that I guess you would have to have in place.
yeah, and I have a very rough slide just to kind of ground everyone keep everyone on the same page. So just a quick slide share. I think so for us, obviously, for the different streaming products we have, the use cases are a combination of WAD and live. And in the live case, it's live event versus DVR versus C3, C7. But then the other thing is that we have ad subscriptions. And the ad subscriptions mean that we have to create personalized bit streams or sequence of bytes for the end user that they can play. And that happens through many different ways. But ads is probably not the area that I want to focus on. So I'll just kind of quickly talk through the architecture to get everybody on the same page. So we have the live pipeline. So looking from top to bottom, on the left-hand side, the pink boxes are the live pipeline, which ingest the content, then the live storage. And then parallel to that is the WAD pipeline, the WAD storage. Now I mentioned WAD and WAD pipeline, the WAD storage is because as you continue to go down, the content flows through the origin shield, which is for the most part, we have our own Disney mid-tier. And in some cases, we also have commercial shields in use as well too. And all that content flows through a distribution mesh as the terminology that we call. And the distribution mesh includes a combination of your commercial CDNs, a combination of open cache providers, Quilt is a name that comes to mind, and then Disney Edge, which is our own homegrown CDN. And so the content is delivered to the player through a sequence of one or more of these CDNs. And that's where the CDN selection kind of comes into play. And there's a whole reason for why we have to do that multi-CDN failover resiliency and such. But from a player's point of view, the player is receiving a sequence of these reds and blues segments, which is really what I'm trying to indicate here is a sequence of live and VOD, where the live is the actual live asset, the Super Bowl, but the VOD is VOD is just the ads that are being inserted. And so that's where I guess the personalization comes into play for us. So that's a high level of what we do as far as live is concerned. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And we know who this is a lead-in for. Gautier, why don't you give us a little bit more background on you? Not necessarily your relationships, but what are you doing? Like, give us
with Open Cache. So basically, the big challenge that Open Cache is trying to solve is remove the traditional bottleneck of CDN delivery. All of us at Quilt, we came from the top CDNs that you can think of. Everyone that you guys are working with, we all came from those companies. And as time advanced, when we were getting onto those big live events or those big, Disney with those big release, those big episodes that people have been waiting for a couple of years, Star Wars, it's always there's those crazy high peak of traffic. And from traditional CDN, the bottlenecks are not the capacity, the server capacity. It's always the access to the network, the access to the eyeballs, right? The peering points in my past life were the biggest challenge we had, right? How can we put that much traffic into an ISP to reach the number of eyeballs that we need to reach? So the way that Open Caching approached that issue is by saying, we're going to partner with the ISPs, and we're going to deploy architecture inside the network in partnership with the ISPs with a density and a granularity that has never been done before, right? If you look at a top US ISP, for example, you're going to have big CDNs are going to have 4 or 5 nodes. One of our largest ISP in the US, we deploy 600 nodes within a single ISPs. So those nodes are smaller, but the density and the granularity is much more important. So what that means is that we remove that access to the network kind of like component bottleneck, and we have the ability to scale massively within an ISP network. Now, what we're doing also is for that to work is that there need to be an interest for the ISPs, right? And that's where the second smart part about Open Caching comes, which is how we reinvent the relationship with ISPs. There's a revenue sharing model. That means that the ISPs are seeing now content delivery as a revenue stream for them. So for the very first time, all the delivery chain, right, from the content producers to the CDN to the ISPs, they all have a vested interest making sure that the content provider is happy and that the users get the best quality of experience possible, right? And that changes, basically it's simple, but that changes the way all of it works, because now the ISPs are really a true partner. They're helping. When we tell you we deploy 600 nodes within an ISPs, it's the ISP who tell us, well, it's my network, I know better. So if you want to be the most efficient, you need to deploy in all those locations. They give access to data, they give access to analytics. And all of that, basically, they give access to support, which is very important with those big live events, right? Like how many platform can say we have ISPs basically helping us providing iron glass monitoring during a big live event. And that's kind of like revolution is the big word, but that's kind of like the evolution, the kind of next generation content delivery platform we're trying to work on. And by deploying that globally, and making sure that all those ISPs are interconnected through the Open Caching format makes a very good evolution and a very interesting value proposition for content delivery.
Okay, all right. Now, I was going to go to Jonas next to talk about something slightly different, but Jonas, is there any kind of questions that you have to Gautier while we're just still fresh on this topic?
Yeah. Maybe for Gautier and PC, how do you manage about the CDN standards for integration? Because every time that we need to integrate with a CDN partner, we need to do a lot of effort to do this type of integration. I know that Disney and other company is working on developing some CDN standardized metadata. So how do you see the industry on the following years? Are you going to unite everyone to do these standards, or
Yeah.
do you think that's going to happen how it's ever was?
Sorry, dude, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but my excitement, I couldn't really control that because SVTA, just to kind of make a pitch for that, I think SVTA is probably the one place where I know of where the most changes are happening and most progress is happening. The problem definition is that every CDN, every open cache provider is configured to handle HTTP GET requests responses. But the way we configure those delivery rules is over a set of proprietary APIs and object models. And it's not a scalable solution at all, because for an operator like ourselves, not operator, but a content provider like ourselves, where we use multiple CDNs, we need to have an expertise on our side to understand CDN1, CDN2, so on and so forth. What SVTA is doing under the open caching working group is trying to address some of these incompatibilities or lack of standardization. So to specifically answer your question, there is a configuration management API working subgroup within open caching that is exactly trying to solve exactly the problem that you're defining. And to the end goal would be that a DevOps person can use a single interface. They don't need to know what CDN is behind that API, but they're using a single API and a single object model to configure your course responses, your failover strategy across primary and backup host names, your timers and such. And it just works across any CDN and open cache partners that actually support that configuration management API.
So I want to interrupt you just for a second, just so I'm clear on this. So with the GET responses, is it that people have to basically interact with every CDN in a slightly different language? I'm not going to call it language, but okay.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, if you're trying to configure a rule to say that return a 302 back, every CDN has a different model in which they have their own APIs and their domain language in which you configure the CDN to support that 302. And SVT, open caching, tries to solve that problem. Yeah. Okay.
Do you guys want to talk about this more, or should I continue on with the question I had for Jonas? I'm going to continue on with the question I had for Jonas. So not to put you on the hot seat here, but we talked earlier, and some of this is relevant to what we were just saying. We talked about how you don't know when you're going to get a large amount of traffic onto your network. So why don't you give us a little bit of background as to why that is and how you handle it?
Okay, maybe I can
Big Brother?
share. Yeah, Big Brother. Big Brother is a good case, because basically you're seeing my screen here. So basically for Big Brother, we have, in years without World Cup, Big Brother Brazil is the major event of the year for us, because we have more than 100 days, 24/7 streaming, more than 10 live feeds. And we do a lot of load and stress testing, and also with chaos engineering to be prepared for it, measuring all the thresholds to do some secret break events, being as resilient as possible, because we have a new use case here. So basically everyone is watching the show at TV on the broadcast layer, but we are also have users watching our OTT platform, other type of content as well, and we received an increase during the show. So due to simulcast live streaming, or maybe a second screen that the user is watching the TV, the show, and it's watching on the second screen as well during the ad breaks on TV to watch what's going on. So sometimes the shows ends in the middle of a game to decide a leader, an edge, or something, or during a discussion, and everyone starts to watch at the same time at Globoplay. So in one single minute.
Let me interrupt you for a second. So you said, in fact, we were talking about this, so I think it's I'm a little bit in the dark here. So essentially people are on for the World Cup, and then you're dealing with the transition onto something else on Global Play? Is that how it works?
Yeah, they're watching on TV, the Big
Okay.
Brother Brazil. There's a game, a discussion, or something that's going to in a dispute. They
Okay.
show ads on the TV, and they open the app, the Global Play app, to watch the live feed, the live stream, to watch what's going on, and everyone do this on the same minute. So in just 1 minute, we have 1 million of requests and plays per minute. It's a critical moment for us, and we learn a lot to stay as resilient as possible with all the capacity that we have driven to deliver the content to the users, and also manage some traffic depending of the ISP or region. Maybe when the ISP link is with the threshold of 85% of capacity usage, we route the new request to some CDN partner. So we do also some fallbacks to other CDN partners.
Okay.
Because during these major events, we do not know what's the expectation of the people that's going to watch. We have a limit. It's a nature thing. So we count on our CDN partners.
Okay, I got that. I wasn't sure whether, because originally I thought we were talking about the Big Brother surge, but I thought you mentioned World Cup somewhere in there. So
Yeah, because when we do not have World Cup in there, Big Brother is the major one. But
Okay.
this year, World Cup is going to be the major one, because soccer in
Got it.
Brazil is a crazy thing.
Okay,
We love it.
got it. So
And Jonas, I have a question for you on that. How do you manage the load balancing between your own and the failover CDN? Like, is it only a numbers game, like all the new users after 85% go to the failback CDN? Or is that based on the region you're coming from? Or how do you guys manage that?
It's basically on the region of the people that is requesting the video. We see if the ISP link is full or is not. We follow the percentage of usage. Once it's the threshold alarms it at 70%, we have an alarm, and at 80-85, we drive the new request to a CDN partner.
Okay.
So we have maybe 4 partners here, and we deliver through them. And once everything is more easygoing, they come back to our CDN.
okay,
So the player has all the manifest has the priority of the pops that's going to play the video. So maybe a person from Rio is going to play from a pop from Rio, and the second link of the manifest is some CDN partner. So we build this at the manifest.
okay. In fact, so I was going to skip over to players next. Are you guys building your own player? Are all of you building your own players, or are you using off-the-shelf stuff? Okay, I need more than words. So
Yeah,
I mean, I need
no,
words. So PC, you want to take this?
I'll give a quick answer. Yes, we are building our own players. I think because, but more than the players, we kind of try to own the whole stack, because it unlocks a lot of opportunities for innovation, including like having our own CDN too. We're able to iterate through things. We're able to actually experiment quite a bit too. On the player side, multi-CDN capabilities were not native. I think before on the streaming protocol side, what the protocol supported, like the HLS and the Dash, was a notion of a fallback bit rate. So you had 100 KB dash A, 100 KB dash B, but they were still pointing to the same CDN.
Okay.
Now, obviously, things have changed, or rather changing. But prior to that, we had to come up and solve the problems that we were facing on our own. So having our own players allowed us to actually define an ordered list of CDNs that we hand out to the players. And then the players at the runtime started the first CDN, and the runtime logic allows it to try the first CDN. And if for whatever reason there is a race condition wherein CDN 1 has gone down, regionally or globally, it will automatically switch to the second CDN. So there's a client-side aspect to that. There is a server-side aspect as well too on this decisioning side, but that's for a different topic, I think.
Okay.
Well, and if you don't mind a question, how do you update the list of CDNs, or how does the client have that logic to? Because I imagine that logic isn't global, right? Like some of those decisions are different from location to location.
Yeah, so the CDNs that we use in North America is a subset of all the CDNs that we are using across the world. So obviously a CDN selection is a function of the geography in which they are enabled to deliver traffic based on capacity. There is performance considerations that come into play. And then despite having capacity, because capacity is the fiber or the copper deployed, but that capacity fluctuates from a logical point of view because they may have an outage or they have competing traffic. And that's where some means of having capacity input and in the decisioning side of things comes into play too. And that capacity could be defined at the granularity of geo plus ASN, could be at a higher granularity as well too. And just to make a pitch for SVT open caching, capacity API is another kind of like standard that is being worked there, wherein a CDN can allow the content provider to tell us where they do have, let's say, 10 Ts, but the 10 T, if it fluctuates because of an outage or not, they can actually tell us that. And then there are other business rules that you can add as well too in the CDN decisioning aspect.
I was going to go to multi-CDN management, but does somebody else want to talk more about players?
I mean, we leverage open source players. We're a small startup, and so we don't have the luxury of building everything from the ground up for ourselves. But we have extended open source players, particularly to do the hybrid switching from broadcast to broadband and back, which we do kind of in a proxy component.
Okay. To me, not as a developer, when I hear you talking about players and player control of the stream, I just think, does a multi-CDN management tool not give you as much control that you would want?
It does, but for in the drive for perfection, I suppose at one point, so there is a tipping point for everything.
Mm-hmm.
When you start out, you think you don't need a CDN until you do, because your origin is being DOS. And then an outage on a CDN makes you think that maybe we should have a second CDN. And then you have the CDN selection logic on the server side. But that CDN decisioning logic, selection logic, is still relying on signals or human operators telling it when a CDN is available or not. And so by the time you've handed out a CDN, it could have already gone down, and your player is just stuck with that. So now your player still has to support multiple CDNs. And so it's always this path to perfection that you're trying to improve your availability and performance, chasing the nines, the trail of nines, really.
Okay, all right. One thing I'm thinking about is, you guys have, I'm going to go with most of your, would you say you're different from each other in terms of your architecture, or would you say you're more similar to each other?
I believe that we are different and similar in some ways. For on PC, I saw my architecture on the VOD pipeline and the live pipeline, but I think PC has a more international demand, international distribution. So he maybe count on some locals partners for CDN distribution, and for the international layer, for me, we have 2 or 3 partners, because we do have a lot of Portuguese content. So when we launched the Global Play application for USA, basically is most for Brazilian people. Also, Americans and other people can subscribe it, but the most content is in Portuguese. So I do not have a large international operation. So for that, I believe that is quite different from PC, and also for the live streaming services, because we have a lot of live feeds here. I believe PC has also a lot, and when Super Bowl comes, everyone wants to know how they're going to deliver it. So everyone urges to read the article that is going to be written of how did they won these type of challenges.
Okay. Now, somebody came up with a question, and in fact, it was going into my next question, but I'm going to read their question instead. Sahid Rahimi says, is there interest in moving to WebRTC? The lower latency opens up possibilities. So I'm not sure if this is only directed, because the question came in a while ago, if it was only directed to Imran, but any of you guys want to take this?
I mean, you know, for our point of view, or my point of view at least, you know, WebRTC is great if you really want to get super low latency video conferencing applications, etc. For our applications, you know, having seconds, even tens of seconds of latency is not that bad. Most TV services, live TV services, have somewhere between 10 and 20 seconds of live latency from the original event. That said, I mean, if there's folks using WebRTC or other protocols to reduce latency, I'd love to hear about it.
Okay. Anyone else here want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, we're seeing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead. Yeah.
I'm talking from what we're seeing on our side, like the requests we get around WebRTC, extremely low latency. I mean, the open caching is not WebRTC based. I think right now what we're seeing in the market as specific use case, as Imran mentioned, there's a lot of live, live gambling is becoming extremely more popular. The legislation is becoming easier. So we're seeing first service that allows you to watch sport and bet. Every time you have a connection, close connection between real life activities and the online feed, that's where like those kind of solutions start to make sense. And there's also, you know, things about being able to watch, being physically in a stadium, for example, right, during the World Cup, for example, and being able to access the replays or the camera feed almost in real time while you're watching the games. Or you want to see like players warm up while you're literally in the stadium. Those are the use cases that we're seeing across the industry where like WebRTC makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. PC, did you want to chime in on this, or should I continue on my path here?
Let's continue on the path.
My path. Okay. You know, guys, I have to ask this question. Chunk size. So what's your favorite chunk size? And I'm asking this because obviously people have difference of opinion. So what's working for you under your particular use cases? I'll go to PC first, since why not?
Yeah. We have somewhere like 4 to 6 seconds right now. It's a question of trade-off. There are many different trade-offs to consider here, though. If the segment size is too low, obviously you're trying to get to a lower hand waving latency, glass to glass latency. Trade-off is that now you have many connections, many requests being sent. The protocol, the workflow becomes a little bit chatty, many number of requests per second that are coming in. But then at the same time, you're inserting a lot of IDRs or keyframes in the segments. Every segment starts with a keyframe. And so the smaller the segment size, the more number of keyframes that will be over the course of the playback. And that may not be efficient from a cost point of view because there are more number of bits being delivered. So many different considerations come into play. And then for us, specifically for Disney, we don't really have a use case for very low latency, which is where WebRTC is not in consideration today, or not in use today, I should say, more appropriately. For us, 4 to 6 kind of finds a nice sweet spot wherein we have a balance of good number of bytes being added to the payload, to the segments from an encoding point of view, but also achieve reasonable latency.
Okay. Jonas, now you've got a lot of different things that you're supporting. Why don't you give us a little bit of background on that?
Yeah, for basically the live streaming chunk size is 6 or 7 seconds. And we have a battle here because I do the TV broadcast and I also do the live streaming. I believe that is easier to delay the broadcast to be at the same time of the live streaming, but this is not possible. For soccer games, we have here a product that we call Premier, and for these ones is more expensive product. We deliver in 2 seconds the chunk size to reduce the latency. It's not a low latency strategy. It's just to give a better experience to these subscribers, and works well. I believe that the latency reduced in 3 times but it's not the same when you're seeing the broadcast and the live streaming.
Right.
And I believe that is going to be a quite challenge because, like PC said, it's a trade-off. If you want quality, if you want to be resilient, there's a lot of things on the table to do to take your odds, you know.
Now, but also, don't you have a lot of older TVs that you also have to support?
Yep. Yeah, here in Brazil, people doesn't like when someone says, "Okay, I'm going to support only 2020 TVs." Everyone needs to change it because it's expensive. We are a country that we do not have a lot of money, so basically people change their TV on World Cup year. So this year, we believe that a lot of people is going to change their TV for 4K as SDR, maybe or HDR, but we support a lot of old devices. It's difficult to support it because we need to have a lot of versions of our application, and we want to deliver the same experience, but it's impossible to do it. And it's like this. The different device is a huge challenge for us. But
Okay.
we are once the years are passing, we are better for this.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk about chunk size and how you're keeping your efficiency?
We use 2-second segment sizes, and the reason we do so is for quicker channel change, right? Because as a TV service, you know, we find a lot of people flipping channels, and the ability to start more quickly when you do that is kind of important for our customers. We've also I read a paper recently, I think it was out of South Korea, that like for their use case, the optimal segment size, they did a whole bunch of experimentation and looked empirically at, you know, everything from like a quarter second to like 5 seconds, 10 seconds. And supposedly, and I haven't, you know, really looked at the math behind it, they said that the optimal segment size trade-off for both for bandwidth, for fast channel change, et cetera, was somewhere around 0.9 seconds. I don't know.
Okay.
So-
And that's in the ATSC3 environment.
And that's in an ATSC3 context, right?
Okay.
For channel change. So obviously there's a particular scope and use case in mind there, but
Okay.
it's a trade-off.
All right. I'm going to jump over to the next thing. Unless Gote, do you want to say anything?
We are agnostic. Open caching loves everyone. Every
Okay.
segment is welcome.
Okay. All right. So all content matters. Let's move on to QoE and QoS. So I have a question. In fact, this is PC's question, I believe. PC, do you want to kind of give me a rundown as to what your question was about QoE?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. QoE and QoS are kind of like another favorite topic as well too. Also being handled at SVTA. I keep making this plug for SVTA.
Okay.
The question is always that, you know, our focus is always from the client side point of view, quality of experience, the QoE metrics, your typical metrics on play start, play failure, rebuffering and such. But they're also a function of a root cause that is happening or that has happened in the past upstream of where the player sits. And so it is absolutely important to actually figure out where these problems happen so you can react to them much sooner. And these systems are generally your CDN delivery side of things, your channel acquisition, signal acquisition, but then also your services layer as well too. So the player first starts talking to your services layer running in the cloud, let's say, and those systems to be up there running without much latency, and they should have availability. And once that handshake completes with the services layer to get access to the playback URL, then the player starts talking to the CDNs to start pulling the content. But in a live case, the content is never sitting with the CDN except for the content ages out really fast because everybody is generally at the live edge. So the CDNs invariably have to keep going upstream to the shield, to the origin, but the origin also never has the content. So it has to be coming in from the signal. And so having visibility into these different systems and having a DevOps model and owning responsibility of like different systems in your pipeline and making sure that availability and latency is under check. And if they pass a specific threshold, you should signal on those. Now, a threshold is, I don't know how popular this concept is, but if it isn't, it should be, because the different components, they have to operate within a threshold of performance. And if they cumulatively, if those thresholds add up, when those thresholds add up, it will have a negative effect on the player side. So it kind of becomes important to monitor when a specific system starts to flag and starts to kind of flail, really, and then alert on that. And then based on that, you can actually have your mitigation strategies as well too. So I guess that was like part question and part most of the answer.
Okay. So realistically, all of you guys have something, I'm going to assume, for QoE, QoS. Are there issues with how it works for you, or is it working fine?
It could always work better.
Yeah.
I don't think you're never done with QoE. You're never just, oh, we're done. You know,
You're not. It's not good enough. You're just no. You're okay. You're perfectionist.
So I mean, for us, it's really about, you know, to PC's point, it's about getting visibility to as much of the telemetry as you can, and then understanding it. Because at some point, when you've got so much data, it's about really trying to put it in a format that you can visualize and really pinpoint easily. We're having a problem in, you know, this particular CDN node in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or something like that, right? So there's issues like that, and then, you know, the entire service layer needs to be monitored. You know, to his point, you know, this is a DevOps model, and so, you know, the bane of existence to video services is not always the video. Usually it's 9 times out of 10 there's an authentication issue, right? Or there's some other issue like that that's not even in the CDN delivery. And so you've got to really monitor all of the services involved in delivering video, as opposed to just what delivers the video bits.
Now,
and from a vendor perspective, that's exactly what we're seeing. We went from a model before where, you know, CDN would provide a portal, and that portal from the CDN standpoint would be, you know, the baseline of monitoring. Then we went into client side, and now everything we're seeing is API based. So you don't maintain your own portal as a CDN or as an open caching platform. You open API, and API feed the data to those systems built by people like PC or Imran that basically have visibility over the entire ecosystem, from the acquisition, the content acquisition to the client side. And every you know, element of the chain, the delivery chain, just provides their data into that huge dashboard or that huge monitoring service that basically have, you know, I like to think in my head like a train track. You know, you have the different station with green light, red light, and basically your role now as a delivery partner is just making sure that you feed that data so that it goes into that train track model. And when you need to figure out where the issue is coming from, you make sure that everything on your responsibility is green, basically.
Yeah,
so
and something that Imran said that about the authentication. I remember a case that when someone gets authenticated on the platform, you need to know if he paid his bills, if what's the content of keep watching, what's the thumbnail that I'm going to offer, what's the advertising that I'm going to put on the stream, everything about every single person that is authenticating. So when some big times comes, we just turn off. This is one of the circuit breaker attributes that we have to turn off this, because the major things that the goal, what we do is deliver video. So for this is just a bottleneck. So maybe sometimes we just need to turn it off, and when the time comes, when the white tide comes, we turn it on again.
okay. In fact, I was going to ask you, are a lot of these systems very siloed, or do you have access to them? Imran's like smiling. So why?
You know, my answer is always going to be predicated by we're a startup, and so you know, we have the benefit of building things greenfield, right? So when we think about it, we can integrate things more quickly and easily than anyone who's built up a large portfolio of infrastructure. And at the same time, once we've built something, we don't want to keep rebuilding and rebuilding, and we want to move on to something else that we need to build. So the answer is yes and no. Like we have been able to integrate some things more quickly and easily than I have at other companies. And then at the same time, once we've built something, it just sits there while we're building other things. And so we naturally get silos when that happens.
Okay. So what's been easier to integrate?
I think for us, we've been focused on the broadcast infrastructure and really providing a new and more of a DevOps model to the broadcast infrastructure. So that's because we've put a lot of focus there. That's been really easier. But it's things like, billing systems or Salesforce or, other systems that, we may, not to call out any one vendor, but sales enablement systems, et cetera, to more traditional backend infrastructure and back office systems that we haven't been able to integrate yet. Not that you can't, but we haven't put a priority on it yet.
Okay. Now, we only have a few minutes left, as in really quite a few. Is there anything else you guys want to quickly cover that, a big challenge you've had that, or, a question for somebody else? Mostly because you have to talk quickly, but I'm sure there's other things that have come up. Anybody?
So I have one for Jonas, actually. The World Cup of soccer, or as we say in the rest of the world, football, is coming up in November. Obviously, I guess this is one of the largest event in Brazil. So is there anything specific you're doing for that event that you're not doing for Big Brother, for example?
Here we call football. So speaking soccer for me is kind of weird. We all when I say it, we are preparing ourselves to the World Cup. We are going to deliver live stream in 4K, HDR and SDR, and we are doing tests right now for this to guarantee that everyone has the best experience possible using our product. And we have also a curve of subscribers that we need to support, and we are also having some partnership with a lot of other companies, because once we have this type of event, everyone wants to keep close to you, to support you, and also write an article or write something. And for World Cup and Big Brother, they're going to be close because World Cup is in November and Big Brother starts on January. So the same effort that we are doing for Big Brother, we are just anticipating 3 months to be ready for the World Cup. So like I said, to the end of the year, we are going to have more than 150 pops. And we are also spreading all the news all over Brazil on the events, because here we have a lot of ISPs, small ISPs, that we need to integrate more and deliver more video content.
We have to leave that as the last word since Eric has popped back. And I'm sure we're out of time.
Indeed. Whether or not I had popped back, we'd still be out of time. Anyway, thanks so much. As always, that was a terrific discussion. Thanks to our audience. Thanks to our panelists. Speaking of our audience, our Amazon gift card winner is Dr. Mia Morgan White. So Dr. White, keep an eye on your email next week and you'll get information about that Amazon gift card. Thanks again to Quilt for sponsoring this panel. Thanks to Media Silo for sponsoring all 3 days of Streaming Media Connect. That wraps it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern for a session about FAST and the future of OTT. Hope to see you then.
Okay, thanks very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.